You're losing a war in your own kitchen right now, today. While you're watching this, there are ants somewhere in your house, maybe under the sink, maybe behind the fridge, maybe in a crack behind your baseboard you can't even see, and you've been fighting them the same way for years. You see an ant, you smash it. You see 10, you grab the raid, you spray the counter, wipe the trail, and stand there for a second feeling like you won something. You didn't win anything. Here's what actually happened. You killed 6 ants, maybe 20, out of a colony of 100,000. The queen, 2 feet underground in a chamber built specifically to protect her, never felt a thing. She didn't even know it happened. And while you were standing there with a paper towel feeling satisfied, she laid another 1,500 eggs. That's not a typo. 1,500 in a single day. Every day. For years, you cannot outkill her with a can of Raid. It's not even close. And that's the problem nobody talks about, because there are two completely different things people do when they see ants, and almost everybody does the wrong one. The first thing is killing. Killing means you destroy the ants you can see, spray them, smash them, wipe the trail with vinegar. It feels productive. It looks like progress. And it is completely strategically useless. You're removing soldiers from an army that replaces them overnight. You could kill 1,000 ants a day for a month, and the colony wouldn't even notice. The second thing is exterminating. Exterminating means the queen dies, and when the queen dies, everything dies. The workers, the larvae, the soldiers, the whole operation collapses within a week. No queen, no eggs, no colony. Game over. But the queen never leaves the nest. She lives underground, surrounded by workers who feed her, protected by soldiers who guard her. You will never see her. You will never reach her. You will never spray her. So how do you kill something you can't see, can't reach, and can't touch? You send the poison to her through her own supply chain, through the foragers who carry food back to the nest, through the workers who pass it to the larva, through the larva who feed the queen. The poison has to be slow enough that the forager survives the trip home, sweet enough that the colony accepts it as food, and lethal enough that 2 days of feeding kills everything from the inside out. There's a recipe that does all three. 2 ingredients, about $3, and a patience test that most people fail on the first night. The Amish have been using it for generations, not because it's traditional, not because it's folksy, because it works, because it costs nothing, and because they figured out, long before any entomologist wrote a paper about it, that the ant you see on your counter is not your enemy. That ant is your delivery driver, and the package it's carrying is addressed to the queen. This video is going to give you the recipe, the exact ratio, the placement strategy, the hour-by-hour timeline of what happens inside the colony after you set the bait. And the one thing you absolutely cannot do on the first night, even though every instinct in your body will scream at you to do it, but first you need to understand exactly what you're up against. Because this isn't pest control, this is an infiltration. Most people think of an ant colony as a bunch of ants living in a hole. That's like calling the Pentagon a building with some desks in it. An ant colony is a military operation, and it's more organized than most human armies you'd care to name. Around her, you've got the workers. These are the ants you see on your counter. Sterile females, every single one of them. They forage, they build, they clean, they haul food, they tend the larva. They're the ones who found that crumb you dropped behind the toaster at midnight. They're the ones marching across your windowsill in that neat little line that makes your skin crawl. Then there are the soldiers. Bigger heads, bigger jaws. They guard the nest, entrances. They don't forage, they don't build, they fight. And then there are the scouts, the advanced team. One scout finds a food source, lays down a chemical trail back to the nest, and within an hour, 50 foragers are following that trail straight to your sugar bowl. Now, here's the thing. That whole structure, that army, those tens of thousands of workers and soldiers, they all exist for one reason: to keep the queen alive and laying eggs. Every forager that hauls a crumb back to the nest is feeding a machine designed to produce more ants faster than you can kill them. You spray the forager, the machine doesn't stop. You spray 100 foragers, the machine still doesn't stop. The only way to shut it down is to poison the supply chain. And the colony has a specific behavior that makes that possible. A behavior so efficient, so cooperative, that it doubles as their greatest vulnerability. It's a single word most people have never heard, and it changes everything. It's called trophallaxis, and it's the reason your $3 recipe is going to work. Here's what it means. When a forager ant finds food, she doesn't just eat it. She stores it in a second stomach, a crop, built specifically for transport. She carries that food back to the nest, and then she does something that sounds almost human. She feeds it mouth to mouth to another ant, that ant feeds it to another, and another, until the food has passed through dozens, sometimes hundreds of ants, workers, larvae, nurses, and eventually the queen herself. Every meal is communal. Every crumb gets distributed. One forager's dinner becomes the entire colony's dinner within 24 to 48 hours. This is why ants are so successful as a species. They share everything. No ant hordes. No ant eats alone. The colony survives because every member feeds every other member. It's cooperative. It's elegant. From a survival standpoint, it's one of the most efficient systems in nature. It's also the single biggest vulnerability in the entire operation. Because if one forager picks up poisoned food, she doesn't die on the spot. She carries it home, she shares it, and within 2 days, that poison has traveled mouth to mouth through the entire colony. Workers, larvae, nurses, soldiers, the queen. Think about that for a second. You don't need to poison 10,000 ants. You need to poison 10 and let them do the rest. But the poison has to be right. Kill too fast, the forager dies before she gets home. The colony notices. They avoid the bait. Kill too slow, and nothing happens. The poison has to hit a very specific window. Lethal enough to destroy the colony, slow enough to spread through it first. Two ingredients. One of them is sitting in your laundry room right now. The first ingredient is borax, sodium tetraborate. You probably know it as 20 Team borax. Green box, laundry aisle, $4 to $6, and one box will last you years. Your grandmother used it to boost her laundry detergent. The Amish use it to wipe out ant colonies. The second ingredient is powdered sugar, confectioner's sugar, the fine, dusty stuff you put on French toast. $2 or $3 a bag at any grocery store. That's it. That's the entire recipe. The ratio, 1 part borax to 3 parts powdered sugar. Mix them together, dry. Don't add water for indoor use. Dry mix is easier for ants to pick up and carry. For outdoor bait, you can add a few drops of water or honey to make a paste that sticks to surfaces and doesn't blow away. But indoors, keep it dry. Now here's the detail that separates a recipe that works from one that sits on your counter collecting dust while ants walk right past it. You have to use powdered sugar, not granulated, not brown sugar, powdered. And the reason is particle size. Granulated sugar crystals are big enough that ants can physically separate the borax grains from the sugar grains. They eat the sugar, they leave the borax sitting there. Ants aren't stupid. They can detect something wrong at that scale. But powdered sugar is ground so fine that the borax particles and the sugar particles are virtually the same size. The ant can't tell them apart. She eats both together every single time. This one detail, powdered versus granulated, is the difference between a bait that kills a colony and a bait the colony ignores. Write it down. powdered sugar. Not the stuff in the big bag, the dusty stuff in the small box. But knowing the recipe isn't enough, because the kill mechanism is the reason the whole thing works, and it's more precise than you'd expect. Borax is a slow-acting stomach poison, not a nerve agent, not a contact killer, a stomach poison. When an ant ingests borax, it shreds the lining of her digestive system from the inside. The gut stops absorbing nutrients. The ant can still walk, still forage, still feed her nestmates, but she's starving internally, and within 48 to 72 hours, she's dead. That timing is everything. If the poison killed on contact, the way Raid does, the ant would die right there on your counter, next to the bait, and the colony would notice. Ants communicate through chemicals. A dead ant near a food source sends a clear signal: danger, avoid. Within hours, the entire colony would blacklist that spot, and your $3 recipe would be worthless. But borax doesn't kill on contact. The forager eats the bait, walks away, heads back to the nest, and shares the food through trophallaxis. By the time she starts to weaken, she's already fed a dozen other ants, and they've fed a dozen more. And those ants have fed the larva, and the larva have fed the queen. The delay isn't a flaw. The delay is the entire design. Here's a number that puts it in perspective. One forager carrying a dose of borax back to the nest can trigger trophallaxis chains that reach 50 to 100 ants within a single day. 10 foragers feeding from your bait station can contaminate the entire worker caste in 48 hours. And once the workers are contaminated, the queen's food supply is poisoned. She doesn't forage. She never leaves her chamber. She eats whatever the workers bring her. And now, everything they're bringing her is laced with borax. You're not setting a trap, you're launching a slow-motion chain reaction. Every forager who eats from that dab of white powder on your counter and walks away alive is carrying a payload deeper into the colony than you could ever reach with a spray can. But none of that matters if you put the bait in the wrong place. Placement isn't random. You don't sprinkle this stuff across your kitchen and cross your fingers. You place it where the ants already are, because they've already told you their routes. Look at where you've seen ant trails. The line along the windowsill, the gap under the back door, the crack where the counter meets the wall, the space behind the trash can. Those trails are pheromone highways. The ants have already mapped your kitchen better than you have, and they've left invisible chemical markers that say, "This way to food." You put bait directly on those highways, take a quarter teaspoon of the dry mix, drop it on a small piece of cardboard, a bottle cap or a jar lid, something flat and low, place it right next to the trail, not on top of the ants, next to them, within an inch or two. The scouts will find it within minutes. Set up 3 to 5 stations along the most active trails, one near each entry point you can identify, one near the heaviest traffic. If you've seen ants behind the fridge, put one back there. Under the cabinet lip, along the baseboard where the pipes come through the wall. For outdoor colonies that send foragers inside, place stations along the foundation of the house, near the base of the wall where it meets the ground, next to any visible cracks. Stay with me for a second because this next part is where most people blow the whole thing. Within 1 to 2 hours, a scout finds the bait, she tastes it, heads back to the nest, lays a pheromone trail, and within another hour you'll see a line, a real line. Dozens of ants marching from the crack in your wall to your bait station, feeding and marching back. That line might be 30 ants. It might be 100. Your stomach will drop. You'll think it's getting worse. Every nerve in your body will tell you to reach for the paper towel. Don't touch them. Don't touch a single one. That line of ants eating from your counter is the best thing that's happened in this war. Every ant in that line is a delivery truck heading straight for the queen. But the next 72 hours are going to test you in ways you don't expect. And the first night is the worst one. The first night is the hardest thing about this entire method. Harder than mixing the recipe, harder than finding the trails, harder than any of it. Because the first night, you stand in your kitchen and watch ants eat from a dab of white powder on your counter, and you do absolutely nothing. Hour 0 to 2, scouts find the bait. The pheromone trail gets laid, foragers start arriving. A thin line forms. This is normal, this is working. Hour 2 to 12, the line thickens. 50 ants, 100, maybe more if the colony is big. They're feeding hard, hauling bits of the mix back to the nest in a steady stream. Every instinct says, wipe them out. There are ants everywhere. This is disgusting. Don't. Every ant walking away from that bait station is a missile you just launched at the queen. Let them walk, let them carry it home, let them feed it to their sisters. Hour 12 to 24, the line is still active. Underground, trophallaxis is spreading the borax through the worker caste. Nurses are feeding contaminated food to larvae. Workers are feeding it to the queen. Nobody knows yet. Not a single ant in that colony knows what's coming. Hour 24 to 48. The line starts to thin. First foragers, the ones who ate the most on night 1, are weakening, slower. Some don't make it back to the nest. You might see dead ants near the bait station. The line shrinks, not because the colony lost interest, because the colony is starting to die. Hour 48 to 72, visible die-off. Dead ants near the nest entrance if you can spot it outside. The line is a fraction of what it was. Workers dying, larvae dying, the queen is symptomatic. Day 4, the line stops. Few ants, maybe none. Day 7, colony is dead. No more ants from that entry point. Check for satellite colonies. Some species keep backup nests. If a new trail shows up from a different direction, rebait, same recipe, same patience, same result. You set this up on a Tuesday night. By Friday, the line is gone. By the weekend, you won't see a single ant. But you have to survive Tuesday night first. You have to stand in your kitchen at 11 p.m., watch 60 ants crawl across your counter, and remind yourself those ants are dead. Ants walking. Everyone that leaves your counter alive is doing your job for you. Everyone is carrying poison to a queen you'll never see, through a supply chain she built herself. Let them go. That's the whole trick. Let them go. But not every ant eats sugar. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. The borax and powdered sugar recipe works on most common household ants. Pavement ants, odorous house ants, little black ants, Argentine ants, ghost ants. If the ants in your kitchen are small, dark, and following a trail towards something sweet, this recipe will kill the colony. But some species prefer protein. Carpenter ants and grease ants are the biggest culprits. If you set out the sugar bait and the ants walk right past it, you've got protein feeders on your hands. Switch the carrier, 1 part borax to 4 parts peanut butter. Mix it into a thick paste. Same mechanism, same timeline. The borax doesn't care what it rides in on. For summer infestations where ants chase water more than food, there's a liquid version. Half a teaspoon of borax, 8 teaspoons of sugar, 1 cup of warm water. Soak cotton balls in the solution. Set them on small lids along the trails. Liquid bait in summer, dry bait in spring and fall. Match the bait to whatever the ants are after. Now, safety. Borax is low toxicity for humans and pets. Your grandmother scrubbed floors with it. But low toxicity isn't zero toxicity. Keep your bait stations where only ants can reach them. Under cabinets, behind the fridge, along baseboards, in corners. Not on food prep surfaces. Place it on cardboard next to the counter, not on it. Wash your hands after handling the mix. Store the borax box out of reach of kids. Treat it the way you'd treat bleach. Useful, effective, not candy. Once the colony is dead, seal the door behind it. Caulk the entry points, window frames, door thresholds, foundation cracks. Clean the old pheromone trails with a vinegar and water solution because ants follow chemical maps left behind by their predecessors. Leave the map intact and a new colony will follow it straight back into your kitchen. Store sugar, honey, and syrup in sealed containers. Wipe your counters every night. A clean kitchen is a locked door. The Amish don't have ant problems because they don't leave ant invitations. And the cost? About $3. Those commercial bait traps at the hardware store, $7 to $10 a pack. Check the active ingredient on the back. Borax. You're paying $7 for a plastic shell, around 30 cents of the same mixture you made tonight in a cereal bowl. A professional exterminator charges 150 to 300 for a single visit. He walks in, places bait stations along your ant trails, fills them with borax-based gel, and hands you an invoice. Same recipe, different price tag. So what did the Amish actually figure out that the rest of us missed? They didn't read entomology textbooks. They didn't study insect behavior under a microscope. They didn't know the word trophallaxis. But they understood something that most people still don't, something that a $150 exterminator hopes you never learn. Killing the ants, you can see, is a waste of time. It feels productive. It feels like you're winning. It's theater. The real target is underground, in the dark, laying 1,500 eggs a day, surrounded by workers who will die to protect her. And the only way to reach her is to stop fighting and start thinking. The Amish don't fight ants. They infiltrate ant colonies. They use the colony's own cooperation against it, $3, 72 hours of patience, and a queen who never knew what she was eating until it was far too late. Remember the beginning of this video? You were losing a war in your own kitchen, spraying raid at an army that replaced its losses overnight, feeling like you were doing something while the queen kept breeding more soldiers than you could ever kill with a paper towel and a prayer. That's over now. You have the recipe, you know the ratio, you know the placement, you know the timeline, and you know the one rule that makes the whole thing work. Let the ants eat, let them carry the poison home, let them do the work. Out of everything we covered today, one thing keeps sticking with me. This recipe isn't hidden, it isn't complicated, it isn't locked behind a paywall or a service contract. It's borax and powdered sugar on a bottle cap, and it works better than anything you can buy in a spray can, better than anything an exterminator will sell you for 10 times the price. It just requires the one thing most people can't give it: patience. 3 days of watching ants crawl across your counter and trusting the process. So here's what I want to know. How long have you been fighting ants the wrong way? Spraying and wiping and spraying again, summer after summer? When you try this tonight, come back and tell us how long it took. 2 days? 3? A full week? Drop it in the comments. And if your mom or your grandmother had her own trick for keeping ants out of the kitchen, something she learned from her mother, we want to hear that too. The best solutions never made it into any product aisle. If this changed the way you think about dealing with ants, hit that like button. Not for us, because the algorithm uses that signal to show this to the next person standing in their kitchen at midnight with a can of Raid, losing the same war you just won. They need to see this. And if you're not subscribed, you're in the majority. More than 70% of the people watching right now aren't. It's free, one click, and it means the next time we put out a video like this, something that saves you real money and actually solves the problem, instead of masking it, YouTube shows it to you, instead of burying it behind an ad for the same spray that doesn't work. Next week, we're covering another method the Amish have been using for generations that most Americans completely forgot about. You won't want to miss it.